controversy becomes calamity. Sinn Fein has been rocked by yesterday's resignation of Brian Stanley following a complaint made against the Laois TD made in July and an internal party inquiry. Mr Stanley described the process as a kangaroo court, with Sinn Fein last night referring the matter to Gardaí.
I believe the nature of the complaint and the counter-allegation are such that for an abundance of caution and to be sure, these matters have been placed in the hands of An Garda Síochána.
The pressure is now on Party President Mary Lou McDonald to answer why the issue was only handed to the authorities now instead of 3 months ago.
The issue of an internal disciplinary hearing that subsequently gets referred to the Gardaí does open up the question, should it have been referred to the Gardaí in the first instance? But that's something that I don't have clarity on, and only Sinn Féin can provide that clarity.
Brian Stanley is expected to be removed from his position as the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. The prominent position has seen Stanley become one of Sinn Féin's most high-profile politicians and saw him lead the questioning of the RTE saga. The matter compounds a torrent of bad news for Sinn Féin and Mary Lou McDonald. Last week she lost another TD in Kildare's Patricia Ryan, who said she felt pushed out. While Miss McDonald will also face dull statements this week on the handing of the conviction of former press officer Michael McMonigal for child sex offences, with 2 references provided for Mr McMonigal by 2 officials within her party. The serious matter is mounting at a time the party prepares for a general election campaign. Richard Chambers, Virgin Media News.
Right, let's get more on the turmoil facing Sinn Féin. Our political correspondent Gavin Riley joins me now from Leinster House. So firstly, Gavin, this lunchtime, where are we now in this controversy?
Well, as it stands, there do remain some questions that government parties are raising for Sinn Féin and specifically for Mary Lou McDonald. And they all centre around this referral by Sinn Féin to An Garda Síochána of the matter that was being investigated. Now, Mary Lou McDonald said in a round of morning radio interviews this morning, and as she had said yesterday in an interview with me for Virgin Media News, that this issue was only referred to An Garda Síochána, as you heard in Richard's report, out of an abundance of caution. That effectively there was an internal party organisation or a party structure that was underway to try and resolve this matter. That was collapsed by virtue of Brian Stanley walking away, and rather than simply allowing the complaint to go unprocessed any further, that Sinn Féin has handed it over to An Garda Síochána. But as you've heard from the Taoiseach, and this is widely spread among coalition parties, there are questions around, well, if it is the case that out of an abundance of caution it's been handed to An Garda Síochána now, why wouldn't that have been the case at the end of July or early August when the party first received this allegation? Why has it only been brought to the Guards now? And if it is something that warrants a Garda scrutiny, even at only a procedural level, why wasn't that done a couple of months ago? We should say that again today we have been trying to get hold of Brian Stanley. So far no responses from him to our queries or indeed to anyone else's.
And Gavin, what then are the implications for the replacement of Brian Stanley as the chair of that powerful Public Accounts Committee, and beyond that then for the timing of a general election?
Well, it is definitely the case that Brian Stanley will be losing his position as chair of the Public Accounts Committee. The chairs of Oireachtas committees are doled out on a party basis, so it does ordinarily fall to Sinn Féin as the lead opposition party to fill that spot on the PAC. There might be a fly in the ointment on that front, however, because 2 of the coalition TDs on that committee, namely Fianna Fáil's James O'Connor and Fine Gael's Ciarán Cannon, say that they won't cooperate with the appointment of any other Fine Gael TD in lieu of Brian Stanley as the committee's chair, because they believe now that the party as a whole has questions to answer, and the same reasons that might debar Brian Stanley from membership or being chair are also the same reasons that might debar anyone else. We'll see how that plays out, possibly not this week but maybe next, because it might take the guts of a week even for Brian Stanley to be stripped of his position in the first place, and only then might there be a vacancy arising. As regards the general election itself, there is a growing body of evidence, or growing view rather, within the coalition, even further than there was already, that now is the time to strike for Simon Harris. He is due to meet with Micheál Martin and Roderick O'Gorman this evening to have the talk about election timing. There was already some view that perhaps next week might be the last week of this Dáil term, that we might have a Halloween recess and the Dáil may not come back afterwards. There's a growing view now within the coalition that, given the position Sinn Féin finds itself in, that there might perhaps be a case for having one extra day of business this coming Friday, wrapping up all the loose ends, and then having Simon Harris coming back from Brussels into the chamber on Friday and announcing that he wants to make an appointment at Orsa Nuachtarán.
All right, our political correspondent Gavin Riley at Leinster